Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In today's video we'll be talking about the 2024 presidential election, specifically the polling we have as of right now. And today I want to focus on the Trump versus Biden polling. I know we have a lot of DeSantis versus Biden polling, but in terms of today, I want to look at Trump versus Biden because, again, Trump is likely to be the GOP nominee. And I think it's more interesting to look at these Trump versus Biden polls because they kind of create a more interesting and consistent picture. So let's talk with them. I do want to note that early polls aren't necessarily the best way to predict an election. They historically have not been very indicative of the actual result. That's mostly because you have a lot of undecided voters early on. When you look at these polls, you have like here 43, 44. That's obviously not a possible outcome for the final popular vote. Even 49, 45, which is kind of on the higher end of people that are not undecided, that's still not an outcome that you could get in the popular vote realistically. So I'm just going to say right now that I don't think early polls are a great way of predicting elections. I want to wait at least till April or May of next year until we can actually start like looking at polls and throwing them in any sort of average. But that being said, let's talk a little bit about these polls rather. So first of all, you'll note that there's kind of a weird amount of variance here, right? So in NBC's poll, which I think was actually done really well, they had Biden up by 4. YouGov had Biden up by 4 as well, and then I'm not going to look at this poll because they had Kanye West at 6%, which is a joke. But Emerson in their good poll had Biden up by 0.5 point, and then Harris has Trump up by 2. And so if you were to average those out, you would get 6.5 over 4, which is like 1 point, a little more than 1.5. So let's say Biden wins the popular vote by like 1.65 or 1.7. This is probably the map you'd be looking at. It would probably be a slightly better performance than 2016 for Democrats just because now their vote distribution is slightly better. But realistically, you'd kind of see a similar map. You'd see Democrats losing Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. They wouldn't really do that well in the Rust Belt, or in the Sun Belt, sorry. And Biden would win Michigan, which Hillary Clinton did not. But I don't think that's like really what you're looking for if you're a Democrat. You want to win, obviously, and as great as it is to win Michigan, unlike what happened in 2016, it doesn't really do a ton to help you be elected president. So, to me, if you look at the polls just only based on their average, you're probably going to get a pretty pro-Trump picture. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I could see the argument for Trump being an underrated candidate at this point in time. I actually think he is. I think a lot of people think he's really screwed. A lot of people think he's going to lose Texas. I don't think that's going to happen. So that's what I want to say. But I do not really buy the dynamic that Trump is like secretly winning this election because I don't think that's the case. I think when you look at the polling, you'll see he's down only a little bit. He's down like an amount similar to 2016, which is obviously good for him. But when you look at the broader electorate, you look at how Democratic candidates for Congress are polling, it's pretty clear to me that Democrats are just the only thing they're suffering from in polls is the Joe Biden problem because Joe Biden's super unpopular right now. And that's not going to change. I don't think he's going to get any more popular by election day, but I do think his approval is going to go up. So let's talk about that. As of right now, he has a 41.5% approval rating and 53% disapproval rating. That's not good, obviously. He's a net of negative 11.8, and that is worse, I believe, than Donald Trump around this point in his presidency. I can check right now, but yeah, Trump was maybe a little under a point higher, which again, Donald Trump was by no means a popular president either, but he was doing better than Biden. And so to me, that kind of is just, it doesn't really mean too much because again, Biden had a worse, like on election day 2022, Joe Biden, I think actually had a worse approval rating. He was at like negative 11. Let's see. He was at negative 12. Yeah. So he was doing worse, although pretty similar overall. But Democrats, I don't think they're going to be hurt too much by Joe Biden's approval. And even if you buy into that, I think you can make a pretty good argument for Biden's approval being raised by election day. Specifically when you look at historically what's happened with past presidents. So right now, a lot of people who say they disapprove of Joe Biden, and you can prove this by looking at 2022 exit polls. A lot of people who are telling pollsters they don't approve of Joe Biden voted Democrat last year. In fact, Democrats actually won the people who said they somewhat disapprove of Joe Biden by 4%. That's crazy because across the entire country, voters that said they still somewhat disapprove of Joe Biden voted for Democrats by 4% in the midterms. That's just never been seen before. In 2018, the midterm when Trump was president, voters that said they somewhat disapprove of Trump voted for Democrats by like 30 points. And this year, voters that somewhat disapprove of Joe Biden voted for Democrats by 4. They stuck with Biden's party despite the fact they didn't approve of him overall. And so this year, when we start to see Joe Biden getting compared to Donald Trump, I think that's going to really help Joe Biden. I think a lot of the voters who say they don't approve but are going to vote for him anyways are going to be negatively polarized and just telling pollsters that they approve Joe Biden anyway, just to kind of make their preference clear. It's kind of a psychological thing. It's like when you don't have an alternative, you say you don't approve of it, but a lot of these voters still would vote for Joe Biden over Donald Trump. So that's where I'm at right now with approval. And I think that I would expect Joe Biden's approval to go up. I don't know by how much, probably by a little bit, not anything crazy, but I think that we could easily see him at 43%, 44% on election day, and I think that would help his case. But let's talk about the polls just compared to my expectations. So as I said, the average unweighted for anything, it just based off of my bad mental math, is probably Biden plus 1.65, 1.7 maybe. But let's talk about polling adjustments, because in 2022, the polls actually underestimated Democrats by a little bit, which is weird to think about, but it did happen. When you adjust for for non-contested races, national popular vote in 2022 is about R plus 0.7, I believe. Maybe a little more. I might not be recalling correctly, but either way, Republicans won it by under a point, and they were up by 2.5. So let's say you add a 1.5 to Joe Biden nationwide. Well, he's probably winning back Georgia, probably winning back Pennsylvania, probably winning Michigan by more, probably winning Minnesota by over 5. New Hampshire probably goes to likely. He's probably also winning Arizona, and at that point, you have a Democratic victory. And so that is obviously pretty good for Joe Biden. You would rather see this if you're a Democrat than the previous scenario, but it's still not like the landslide people are talking about. And that's why I'm cautious in general with predicting a Biden landslide, because even when you adjust for the polls being as wrong as they were in 2022, which benefits Democrats, you still don't get Biden ahead in Wisconsin. You probably still don't think he's ahead in Nevada. He's definitely not winning North Carolina or Texas. And so that's why I'm cautious to kind of paint this picture of a super pro-Biden electorate, because a lot of people think Biden's going to win Nevada, win North Carolina, win Wisconsin, win Texas, and I think he'll win some of those states. I think he's favored in Nevada and Wisconsin right now for sure, but again, the landslide just isn't there, and that's kind of what I'm saying right now. If the polls hold up the way they're holding up right now, I will not be predicting any Biden landslide. I'll probably be predicting something similar to this, maybe give Wisconsin to Joe Biden. But that's what I want to talk about today, kind of a shorter video, but I did want to look at the polls and what they're kind of forecasting and talk about what my prediction would be based on these current polls. So thanks so much for watching. Again, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next video.